extreme cold across the country, from Texas all the way to New York. It is driving up natural gas prices fast. New data shows U.S. natural gas prices are up more than 70% just this week, on track for the biggest jump in decades. The cold is boosting the demand for heat. It could also slow production and disrupt some pipelines. Energy experts say that combination can put some extra strain on the power grid during a freeze like this.
Imagine waking up in the energy capital of the world, only to realize the world's energy has decided to leave you behind. You look at the glowing numbers on the corner gas station sign, and they don't make sense. They aren't just high, they're moving, ticking upward like a countdown clock while you're stuck in traffic on I-10. It's February 2026, and a ghostly silence has settled over the Permian Basin, a silence that costs you $5 every time you turn the key. Why is the state that sits on an ocean of oil suddenly gasping for a drop of it? The air is still biting from the Winter Storm Fern that shredded the grid just days ago, but the frost on your windshield isn't the real problem. It's the invisible fracture in a supply chain we were told was storm-proof. You see the tanker trucks idling, the refinery flares flickering like dying candles against the Houston skyline, and you feel that cold pit in your stomach. The realization that something has fundamentally broken. We were promised resilience, yet here we are, watching the digital displays bleed red. It's not just a price hike, it's a systemic seizure. But the local news isn't giving you the full picture, and the politicians are already rehearsing their unprecedented weather scripts. Something else is happening in the shadows of the refineries, a convergence of greed and aging steel that no one wants to admit. A story that only reveals itself if you keep following where the evidence actually leads by staying subscribed. The answer isn't in the clouds, it's buried under the frozen Texas soil. The silence at the pump in Midland isn't just a technical glitch, it's a symptom of a systemic collapse we were told could never happen. You're standing on the very soil that produces more oil than most nations, yet the nozzle in your hand feels like a dead weight. Why is the state that sits on an ocean of energy suddenly gasping for a drop of it? We've all heard the clinical, routine excuses about refinery maintenance. But look closer. Why does routine maintenance look like a total industrial blackout this year? Imagine a surgeon cutting into a patient without a backup plan. That is the current state of our grid. The towering cathedrals of industry along the Gulf Coast are draped in scaffolding and shadows, silent, while the digital price displays on every street corner bleed red. They call it the turnaround, a period where the machines are scrubbed. But this year, the silence is deafening. Is it truly a scheduled cleaning? Or is there a structural ghost haunting the pipes that no one has the courage to admit? The winter storm was supposed to be a memory by now, a brief frost we'd laugh off. Instead, it acted as a diagnostic test that Texas failed spectacularly. When the mercury dropped, the paraffin in the crude oil began to crystallize, turning the lifeblood of our economy into a sluggish, waxy sludge. But here is the question that should keep you awake. If the temperature has risen, why hasn't the flow? We are told the lag effect is to blame, a convenient economic ghost. But if you look at the shipping manifests in the port of Houston, the ships aren't stuck. They are hovering off the coast like vultures circling a carcass. We can't just flip a switch, a refinery foreman told me, his voice cracking. When the pipes burst in January, they didn't just leak oil, they leaked the lie that we were ready for this. We are driving on fumes, not just in our tanks, but in our entire economic philosophy. Every time you see a closed sign on a pump, a piece of the Texas dream fractures. We are currently held hostage by a few degrees of temperature and a handful of proprietary chemical formulas. The tension is thick, like the humid heat of a Galveston July, but it's only February. If the system is breaking now, what happens when the Texas sun begins to bake the asphalt in June? The answer is hiding in the refinery logs, in the skipped inspections, and in the frantic, hushed phone calls between Austin and Houston. You're standing there, watching the cents fly by, and that feeling of being played starts to boil over. The summer blend transition isn't just a recipe change. It's an expensive, mandated overhaul that removes cheap butane. Because of the storm's lag, refineries are struggling to purge the winter stock. They are stuck between a frozen past and a mandated future, and you are the one paying for the friction. Here's the truth. The inventory has collapsed. Because of the pre-storm surge, our local reserves were drained to a 3-year low just as production hit a wall. The price isn't rising because oil is scarce. It's rising because the ability to move it is currently broken. You're waiting for the answer to when it will end. But the reality is that as long as our grid is this fragile, every frost is a financial earthquake. We were told Texas was an island of energy independence. But as you look at that rising total, you realize we're not on an island. We're on a tightrope, and the wind is picking up. The truth is out there, but only for those who look past the headlines. You're standing there, watching the cents fly by faster than the gallons, and that feeling of being played starts to boil over. Why now? Why us? You want a name to blame, a face for the energy king who decided your commute should cost as much as your groceries. But here is where the truth gets uncomfortable. The answer isn't a single person. It's a system designed to operate on a razor's edge. Remember the Winter Storm Fern? It wasn't just a cold snap. It was a physical assault on the infrastructure. When the refineries in the Houston Ship Channel flared, they weren't just burning excess gas. They were burning the very buffer that keeps prices stable. We are currently living through a supply chain hangover. The freeze caused oxygen ingress and waxy buildup in the Permian's pipelines, essentially giving the state's circulatory system a massive blood clot. Now, look at the timing. We are in the turnaround window. You don't understand. A logistics coordinator whispered to me behind a stack of shipping manifests. We are trying to fix the storm damage while simultaneously retooling for the summer blend. It's like trying to change a tire while the car is doing 80 on I-35. This summer blend isn't just a recipe change, it's an expensive, government-mandated chemical overhaul that removes cheap butane to prevent smog. Because of the storm's lag effect, refineries are struggling to purge the winter stock. They are literally stuck between a frozen past and a mandated future. And you are the one paying for the friction. But here is the real pump, the mark where the puzzle pieces finally snap together. It's not just the weather, it's the inventory collapse. Because of the pre-storm surge, Texas's local reserves were drained to a 3-year low, just as production hit a wall. We aren't just paying for the gas we're using today. We are paying the risk premium for a system that realized it has no backup plan. The price isn't rising because oil is scarce. It's rising because the ability to move it is currently broken. You're waiting for the answer to when it will end. But the answer is that as long as our grid is this fragile, every frost is a financial earthquake. We were told Texas was the island of energy independence. But as you look at that rising total on the pump, you realize we're not on an island. We're on a tightrope. And the wind is starting to blow. The truth is out there, but only for those who look past the headlines. The pressure in the system is reaching a breaking point that no one in Austin wants to discuss openly. We aren't just dealing with a lag from the storm, we are dealing with a deliberate redirection of resources. While you're staring at a $3.80 price tag in a Dallas suburb, massive quantities of unrefined Texas crude are being diverted to international terminals because the export margins are currently higher than the domestic refining yields. This isn't a mistake. It's a calculated pivot by players who realize that starving the local Texas market creates a panic buy scenario that inflates prices even further. By the time the refineries fully turn around and the summer blend finally hits the tanks, the damage to your bank account will already be done. We are being bled by 1,000 paper cuts of maintenance fees and market volatility, while the very oil under our feet is sold to the highest bidder across the ocean. If you want to stay ahead of the next crisis before it hits your wallet, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We don't just follow the money, we follow the fuel. Stay sharp